Let's talk about lessons. The 2023 presidential national assembly and on Saturday, February, election Nigeria left their host to polling units. Yeah, the idea or plan was to choose our president, also the 416 federal legislature to represent them at National Assembly. Well, INEC said 19.46 million of the elections, and they're saying also that youths, numbers. Assurances were also given by INEC. The election would hold was quite a few scarcity that rocks the country. The funds, and yes, the naira scarcity almost crippled everything. But hey, here we are. The elections held as was promised. And here we are. But the sad part of the election is that the Bamo voter accreditation, which was a major thing local this particular elections that people are looking forward to. With persist, that results would be transmitted electronically at the polling units. If us failed, it must what we had was manual transmission of results. Now, even the president, he was congratulating the person who was announced winner, that's APC's Bola Tinubu, of course, announced as the winner of the elections, while acknowledging the transmission of the results. So it's not this is what people experienced and something that to everybody in Nigeria. Of course, just a reminder to political parties, the PDP, the LP, the ADC, calling for the cancellation of the integrity of the election. Whether or not INEC is going to on May 29th, let's learn. What lessons did you learn from those concluded elections? And what lessons should the electorates, the political class, the electoral umpire, INEC, learn? Of course, this conversation with me, I have joining with me now via telephone, Inyingi. Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
All right, you're welcome on board.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's talk lessons, Ingi. Well, we're going to have to start with who are we starting with? See, I was interested in the people who came out to say we want the job of president or National Assembly member, but mostly the attention is really all. Did you learn from these people? The candidates in general, especially or focus on the show.
We had Alhaji Abubakar, we had Mr. Ahmed Bola Tinubu, we had Mr. Selby and Mr. Kwankwo. Because I actually was following up on all their campaigns. The civil party actually did a great job around realizing their campaign. They had about 4 presidential campaign councils. They had the main campaign council. They had the youth campaign, had the female youth campaign council, they had the men's campaign council. All the pockets of activities of campaigns around this other campaigns was quite organized, quite strategic, and decentralized. It shows the kind of person he is, very strategic person. And it was also mentioned that Muhammad Buhari win 2015 election. President Buhari was very happy for between 2018 and it happened in so he does look out for to win out. You don't have to head. Just do what you can and then concentrate on where you have, And then he's also he doesn't have pride. And not just that thing. If you actually want, your
line's breaking, Inyingi. I think I'm going to call you back, or maybe position.
Can you hear me now?
Go ahead. Let's see this will work.
Okay, it's okay. So, Mr. Bola Ahmed Tinubu has no party. He doesn't want to rumble when to roll on him. He doesn't have pride.
Okay, the line is still breaking, actually. The line is breaking. I'm going to have to call you, but let me just call you back. I'm glad it's going to clear out. All right, thank you. So I'm connect with Inyingi, and we'll continue the conversation. Rebecca, what you learned from the concluded presidential and national assembly elections. All right, especially if you were there live at any polling units. All right, what did you learn? Did you witness? What did the elections teach you? Okay, so that's what I'm looking at right now. So. And of course, people are calling the number. You're calling the number, calling. All right. I'm not ready to take your call. I'm ready to take your call. I'll take a call. You can send me messages now on WhatsApp while I'm trying to reconnect with Inyingi Irimagha. All right. So also try to hear from her what people should have or should learn from different candidates, and of course with focus on the presidential candidates. And of course, we'll be looking at what INEC, the electoral umpire, should learn from this election. All right. And what Nigerians should learn from INEC from this election. Good, bad, ugly, awesome, wonderful lessons. All right. And we're sharing these lessons without without insulting anybody. That's how we're rolling this time around. Hello, Ingi. You're back on air.
Yes, I'm back. Can you hear me?
All right, this is clearer now. So you were saying something about Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So can you wrap up and then we can talk about another person? All right.
I would say that he's very, very dynamic in his strategies. He's dynamic and he doesn't have time. In that he can talk to anybody, he can travel to anybody, he can achieve certain purposes. That's why to achieve regardless of the issues of irregularity in the process. And I think I'm having nothing new. We've seen him before. He contested, won in 2019. So there was nothing new inspiring you to come out and ask for across country. On the other hand, we have Peter Obi, who was so inspiring. He inspired lots and lots and millions, if I would say, of new voters. People were interested in the elections. People were interested in politics. This is the first time we are having such a long, robust conversation, because usually the political parties are always talking about elections. Nigerians start getting involved with the election, but the political awareness Peter Obi brought to the game started a year before the election. Immediately he declared people while still inspired so much, especially your people across the board. Inspire people. The record of new voters that we have that we've had this election, I'm sure the majority of them were actively inspired by Mr. Peter Obi. The campaign was very much decentralized, and he's also his career and his system doesn't have much mixed for easier like this. He was a very new, fresh candidate that inspired so much in people, and people really, really believe in his candidacy. Mr. Kwankwaso, on the other hand, he has run before. He always asked himself to somebody else or support somebody else. We were expecting him, to out of the race, and then that's myself. I'm going to stay there to get somebody. If he goes out, if a candidate, that candidate will have. And he said, he stays on the ballot that he's saying will have also favored a particular candidate. Actually, it played out that way because he ended over in and he had three candidates going to be very, very upsetting number, and he went away from the elections. The 1.5 million votes would probably have gone to Alhaji Atiku Abubakar and would have given him a winning advantage.
Okay. So now let's look at INEC. INEC had so much on its plate for this particular elections. And first of all, in November 2022, INEC requested for about 50 billion naira for the budget for this year. And it's an increment of 10 billion naira to the 2022 budget, which was 40 billion naira. And of course, they had to defend that particular budget. And talking about, what was it now? Trying to look for a particular word. Okay. Yeah. So they defended this budget, more like letting us know why they had to increase the money this much. All right. And I remember back then the chairman of the Senate Committee on INEC, Kabiru Gaya, said the committee will properly oversee the electoral body to ensure it is prepared for the upcoming elections. Now, just to run away from going into all the details, all right, what should INEC learn as a body from these elections?
I think INEC should learn early enough to, probably select from part of her the roles that she should in election day earlier to other people. They do too much. INEC is umpire, INEC is logistics manager, INEC is welfare manager, INEC is almost security because they're also, saddled with the security of the election. And then, when it comes to the part where they are supposed to prosecute, document and prosecute INEC, of course, the police that should do that, but that also joins to the integrity of the elections, and you see that they are disempowered at that point. I think that it might be necessary for INEC to look for stakeholders long before the election. Look for how to, sublet some of the tasks and responsibilities that are not a legal requirement, those logistical issues, sort it out way before, and then for every challenge that you have faced, look for mitigation plans way before time. I know I saw somebody saying that INEC planned, had said that for every 3 vehicles they'll have to convey materials, that they had one extra just in case, something goes wrong. But we don't get the sense that that's the plan. because even in this instance, they had logistical issues. Materials were getting to polling units late. So I just think that there should be a mechanism where they are selecting some of these responsibilities that are not necessarily the immediate, carrying out the elections, but all those other logistical plans, they should localize it and have these plans way beforehand. Speak to the stakeholders, have a contingency plan. If it is the logistics, let the person arrange our logistics. Let's have an MOU down, with Sunday. And then, the beaver, the training was for their ad hoc staff. The ad hoc staff, many of them were handy, because many of them were all their pictures, not very, very adequate in my opinion. So I think that one thing that you have ad hoc staff is not adequate. There should be done earlier so that you teach them the different aspects, the electoral law. Their manual is quite comprehensive, but you cannot cover that in one day. It should be a continuous thing so that they can internalize it. If you're going to use coppers, you have them for a very long period of time. So the training can be continuous, not just once it's about to get to the election, you're looking for how to train them. Sublet these kinds of trainings out. Get consultants before time that can be doing constant engagement.
All right, Inyingi, just hold on, please. We'll have to go on a commercial break. We'll be right back.
The show continues after this break on Nigeria Info.
On the telephone, and we're still discussing lessons from the just concluded presidential and National Assembly elections. And from what you've said, part of what you mentioned, Inyingi, was the aspect of logistics. You said INEC should prepare for that long before the elections. I remember now that it was around December of last year that talks about logistics, INEC signing some form of MOU with transport unions for vehicles and all that to move election materials and personnel. That was in December. Then around this year, it generated reactions. People were worried about what's it called now, who INEC had contracted to do that. And INEC ended up trying to explain, we're not talking to a particular person, we're talking to transport unions, not necessarily a particular person. So that means if the MOU was signed in around this, it doesn't work. I want to leave. We had the talk around November, or maybe early December after they got the money that they already budgeted for around November.
I don't think you need the money properly. I think you need, that to get the money. I just think that they need to. December is not good time. Election will be in February. But I'm just saying, if tried earlier, you are doing more conservation, because we not always depend on national road workers or whatever. We must not always depend on anyone in every election, because if you're in on them for long and changes, why don't you centralize it? Why don't you for maybe logistics on election day? So I think INEC needs to do more consultation, because if this is linked to 2019, They must keep going.
Yeah, we have the election start in 8:30. But support told you that actually you're not put out at 9:30 as around 2:34, and some other issues that were around that. Okay, you were also saying something about the beavers a little bit here. That was motivating factor for a lot of this town. It was like, okay, even something online. Yeah, if that's it. When it's not a lot of something. A lot of people came out to vote as a result of crepas and adopting the electronic transmission of law mode. Now we have some 11th March. Still go to the EVAs for the March elections.
I think for the UVA election on the month, that's what they have. But worry is a big learn. I never was come with all these complaints after the election, calling how you the hospital and kids. And it shows your team doing a learn across the state and the FP. You ensure they don't carry. You need one. So I hope that they will be able to upgrade what I need to upgrade. Because after the supposed work to boycott, stop that whole election regime that happened. The one people have done is that is not, they are fearing the results by polling the equivalent damage. So if you don't some reports of people attacking polling rallies, can you imagine the right to vote for their stronghold because of the stronghold when they come and leave? You have evidence of push by party. How you feel it? Even have done what's happening at polling unit. That is you put all this technology how we are reading manipulation. But that's the but because we won't be able to actually push them. So not that is one. That is where one. Although I believe that I don't mind situations where I could actually try and once you go and then once if it is uploaded, that is it. I think you also say somebody follow the logic.
Interesting. Now let's talk about the result. What is the result from this election?
Yeah, different aspects because you do kinds of voters that vote different reasons. So it's voters we are wanting to vote for Peter. I think there was a missed opportunity there to really mobilize themselves across the country and mimic the structures, mimic the other political parties that had stronger structures across, Nigeria. During the course of campaigns, you hear people you need to trust with an election. Structure means that there is an administrative structure that is linked to an election that the big political parties have. There are structures that in every election officials, in every local government they have election officials, in every senatorial district, in every state at the national level. So from every ward they have people representing them, and that is how they also help to manage their own accountability issues with regards to the elections. They have the units, so they can actually challenge in court if they are being rigged. So I was expecting, especially those that for the Labour Party, to be able to maybe not just challenge that statement by saying, oh, the people are the structure. Yes, the people are the structure. So you must organize an administrative manner for elections to be able to beat the other parties that have their structures, that have structure for years. Remember, they've had structures for years. Remember, they know elections. Remember, they have money. They have elected officials. They have officials. You need to learn them. Learn how they do their own work. Because in these elections, we're hearing that the PDP situation room, collation center in situation room in that identified that and the party numbers from that was announced. So that report was not on air. So I just believe they should have been education lacking, and you would have them organized in a manner that even when you want to go to court, you have all the evidence across the country to be able to face your court in court. So political awareness is necessary to make people want to participate. The political important. You conduct yourself at the polling unit, the kind of things you do. I think in this election, you're not supposed to come to the polling unit with your CDC, but you keep on pushing the vote for you. And then, the financial inducement, the vote buying, people, really say that the vote buying calls only on election. It doesn't. All of these back engagement that they've been having, little meetings in that local government, they are giving people money to vote for their parties. So the Naira policy that maybe the Naira policy, the indication political parties buying off election officers with dollars. So we should be careful as voters when the government passes some policy, shouldn't time and just think, oh, this thing will work in the blanket. To take it, analyze, look the loophole, and also like and wonder how are going to work this policy for their own good. So I think the right thing. They know that we know how they play. But I think that many Nigerians, many voters played into the hands of, oh, this policy on Naira will destabilize them. They won't be able to buy votes. And of course, that are ready to sell their votes. If there's money, your other means to give us. And then people want to sell their votes, got dollars. At the end of the day, we are happy with the policy. We are left feeling very devastated because for weeks we've not been able to buy or sell. We have this suffering. At the end of the day, the elections did not help secure our elections. So I just believe that elections are it's a very strong game, and it's just not about election day. It's about the things that happened before. And I think that when the people are sensitive and so aware, we are looking for these things that have been manipulated against us before. I think it's necessary that we open and really look before we assign big or anybody or any corner.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Inyingi, Irimagha. Well, let's get to the phone lines now. What lessons have you learned from the just concluded election? You learn anything? Not learning anything. Why? You must have learned something. Please tell me what you learned. All right, number 060-0923-0923, 070-0923-0923, and of course, 0809-030-6416. And this one says, I traveled to my city to vote and found out it's not what we sent that was collated, from Michael. Michael, who told you it's not what you sent that was collated? Lessons past election taught me election results are influenced by INEC, not by voters. INEC is brought to the police. Transmission economic of results technically value as the great deception all times. Waste of time to vote. That's what Nyeti says. And Nyeti, in your reaction to it,
I've been saying we understand this. We feel we're politically aware, but not politically educated. If you're educated about the political happenings, and it's about the law and the process. So the track at how elections happen in Nigeria, that's how the political parties play. We can actually assist it as outplay them in this. So you have to listen in sessions. How you go to ensure that they don't be against the majority of what people want. You know, yes, irrelevant. So if I analyze the trends of this election, you see that, I mean, at the end of the day, a few hiccups here and there, but the elections, the beavers captured what is captured, the results collated in front of the agents. So overall, I go to no part of it. I wouldn't like you to, feel casted and feel like, this is part of Nigeria. It's unfortunate that we still have a non-stage where we are still, I still believe that we can get right. And if you have elected your House president and not formula, this is like, so there's thing that can be done for this election.
I learned that the was abused by our trustees. I also learned that man's government should not be trusted. 40%. My government. God is my heart healer. What the president has taught me is to continue voting candidates, promising not to lose hope or cut the right from our court. And as a country is not teaching to be few people, few power mongers are the problem why this country can move forward. It's not a lazy country. It says the last election is against the electoral gala of the result. Oh my gosh, from Irimagha. All right. All right. I'll see you. I see your message. So I will not waste my time voting. I can never trust INEC again. That's D from Ozua, rather. Eddie, you are already given up, and that's a bad thing. It is not for people to the power. It shows how sincere they are. It is not quality of that. David from Bori sent one. And then this person is asking, let me see back for Emmy. Please, INEC did not learn anything. They will still repeat their errors. That's what Eddie thinks. And then Engineer George says, Nigerians about the poor beavers. They just deceived us. Why am I sad? Why am I sad that the new voters who were optimistic of their votes being counting were to see that their votes were not counted? That message. And then Onyenuche Steven says, I think the Nigerian INEC is not totally independent because they are allowing some political to buy and sell votes during the day of election. Another thing is that the judiciary arm of government is not arresting the defaulters to salvage this electoral malpractice. I wonder what judiciary should be doing, arresting people. I think their job. A good day presenter, the lesson learned so far, Game Award 12, Unit 03, is that the electorates turned up the time. Voting was very peaceful. BVAS upload of results was a deceit. As we prepare for the next coming election, let INEC address all the allegations and infractions from the presidential election, particularly those of the BVAS, to ensure that justice is clearly done to all the voters who will be voting in the next election. Elder Joel Adolphus from Degema. I'm concerned that election in Nigeria, George from Democracy, George, I agree with you. You said election in Nigeria is not worth the effort. It is worth the effort. George, you say since few politicians will decide the fate of millions of Nigerians. Oh well. Mrs. Achibong said, I learned that in politics you should have structures, which is administrative structures, to monitor the process.
Exactly.
So, Inyingi, you mentioned something about the structure and examples of how a particular part carries out and how it helps them. All right, let's see what we have here on Facebook. Quite a lot of them. Favor Lillian said, lesson from 2023 election: 1, our vote is not our voice, and 2, our vote does not count. So for me, there is no need wasting money on election in Nigeria. Rather, they should continue choosing who they want. Before I go with other, what's the word now? With other messages, let me come back to you, Inyingi. This is like the third message I'm reading or so, where someone is talking about wasting time and how votes do not count. All right. Now, with regards to even the complaints coming from even the Labour Party and the PDP calling for the election to be scrapped, more like another election should be held, the stakeholders may be saying that even if as far as he's concerned, what on Saturday was not an election. What do you think?
Well,
What's your take on that?
First of all, I'll just like to say this. I actually prefer the election result map of 2023 than what we had 2015, because it's device doing now. You should have it be there time. In this election, you have multi-state across the country. You know, you feel the result really, really represents Nigeria. Mr. Peter Obi won Nasarawa State. He won Plateau. You know, he won, states in the west, states in parts of the north central, states in the south. And then the other candidate is Alhaji Atiku. Also, me and my colleagues said that we are not seeing one candidate to be, winning like that. You can see that, okay, this person won his stronghold. This person won in this area would look like going to. Some of the states were quite predictable. The campaign. Some states that you could easily say, okay, this person will win it, or person might not. So it shows that as much as people want to complain about the election, because it's the election result map also shows that people won in the areas where it was predicted to. Meaning that at the end of the day, people give a representation of what the campaigns had done in a very, very close manner. With the short answer that happened in Lagos, it was obvious that APC could not win. People had predicted that he was not going to win Lagos. I'm sure we can argue the numbers were displayed or inflated, but he did not win Lagos State. It was almost practically impossible for him to win Lagos State. And there are some places, Peter Obi moving into the north central and winning, some Peter Obi won 12 states. Alhaji Abubakar won 10 or 12 states too. So when you look at the outlook, sometimes you get very, very upset when you hear international observers saying, oh, the elections went well. They are looking at the general outlook of the election. And sadly, the general outlook and the general superior number will always peak above, the little incidents here and there. That's what people should also be aware of when we are very upset about the outcomes of elections. But the truth is that at the end of the day, statistics give space for error. This regard is rigging. with all of rigging in Nigeria, it still manages to give you what the outcome is actually not 100% wrong. I think, in 2015, of course, it was obvious that President Jonathan was going to lose the election. And he lost. Even if you can say, oh, he was rigged out, he was not going to win that election from the numbers and from the way Nigeria is. So the outcome of an election is just not only the numbers on election day. It's accumulation of activities that happen, the way you happen is, how realize it is, the conversations, and then what the aspirations of Nigerians are.
Okay, now, Inyingi, there were polls. I think three or four different times there were actually polls, NOI polls and all that. And when those polls came out, the Labour Party candidates was actually leading in all those polls. So if we're to look at the 2015 outcome, if we're to place it side by side with, should I say, the atmosphere in Nigeria for those 2023 elections, looking towards the Labour Party candidate, and we already
saying that we're actually showing us that Peter Obi was the most favored candidate. Peter Obi, this is his first solo run. He played it last about 1 year. So if the polls are showing you that he was going to win, if you add all of the factors together, the fact that he's a newcomer, the fact that he's going against strong parties, a party that is in power that is very strong, he's going against the other vision party that was almost the only open party for the 8 years. You see that, that should bring down his number to at least win and being a set of third on the line. So it actually, when I saw especially the ANAP polls, it spoke to that Mike actually talking that I didn't not just throw away the numbers. I knew that he was penetrating. And the numbers you cannot get everybody. There are some areas that is going to be very difficult for you to poll when you are doing such we are trying to get data like this. So if you can how many votes come from some people you cannot access data for, you put it together, you will know that yes, he had mainstreamed himself in the game, but he did not have it's possible that he would have won. If you look at those polls, there was indication that Mr. Peter Obi had been streamed. And if you even look at the polls across many states, many states, there are some sectors, there are some factors that might have cancelled it out, but the results mimicked. He won 12 states. And 12 states, winning 12 states for a newcomer is no small feat.
All right, Stephen Possibility Bobari on Facebook says, greetings to you in the studio. I learned 3 things. Election is not won with mouth or social media. And number 2, more underground work has to be done in those rural areas where most people only know of umbrella and broom. And then he also says, number 3, I learned that the real problem is with the educated people who served as INEC officers. They did the dirty jobs from polling unit level to state level before submitting to the national headquarters. All right. I have commercials coming up, and very quickly afterwards, we will wrap up the conversation. Please do stay tuned, and I'll be right back. Person Lebosi Deyo says the POs were not properly trained. The code to open the BVAS was wrong. In my unit, we used manual voting before capturing, and some other things he said. And he says, partially for me, election did not take place. Another person says, one of the lessons I learned is that the Nigerian press media has been pressed. They can't say the truth. Lawrence Orji. So, with regards to what Lawrence said, right? A lot of people actually feel that the media should take its hook, line, sinker the same way it's coming out hot from Nigerians on social media, and we should announce it the same way on radio, maybe across the newspapers as well. We should say it like that, rather than say, okay, this is where this is coming from, but this is what INEC is saying. They do not still understand that we have to give you official figures. We can't give you figures that are not coming from INEC. We can't come out and start announcing, oh, my friend and even our reporter who is at a polling unit says this is the numbers. If it's not coming from the electoral umpire, they are the ones who are saddled with that authority or power to announce results. If it's not coming from them, then we can't announce it. And that's what it is. I must really thank you, Inyingi, for your time with me here on radio this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right. Well, of course, that's where we draw the curtain. But just to also remind you that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, declared Bola Tinubu, the candidate of the APC, as winner of the 2023 presidential election. INEC chairman and, of course, chief returning officer for the election, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, said Bola Tinubu scored 8,794,726 votes to emerge victorious. Atiku Abubakar of the PDP polled 6,984,520 votes to clinch the second position, while Peter Obi of the Labour Party came third with 6,101,533 votes. And of course, Rabiu Kwankwaso of the New Nigeria People's Party took the 4th position with 1,496,687 votes. Well, INEC chairman said the certificates of return for the president-elect and vice president-elect will be presented to them 3 p.m. today. And that's about the time I'll be bringing you the news reversed today. Thank you so much for being a part of the sunny side. And thank you for your calls and your comments. Remember to follow us on social media, Nigeria Info 92.3 PH on Facebook, Nigeria Info PH on Twitter, and Nigeria Info FM _PH on Instagram. You can also find me, Constance Mega, on Twitter, and Constance Mega on Instagram and LinkedIn. God bless you. The news comes up. And of course, afterwards, hard facts with Kala Dakoruba Tubo. To stay tuned.